Now, as I was about to record this video, it was announced that the Charlotte Hornets were interviewing JJ Redick. And if you cannot tell by the thumbnail title of this video, I was going to talk about Charles Lee because really I was going to talk about why the Hornets necessarily haven't hired a coach yet, but in turn I was going to talk about Charles Lee. So let's talk about JJ Redick real quick. So JJ Redick went to Duke, and that's DOOK because, you know, UNC fan here. And I hated JJ Redick growing up because he was so good and he torched us like every year. But anyway, I think JJ Redick would actually be a good coach. He's one of those guys that I see being a good coach. My only problem is it's the Hornets and I just don't have time. I just don't have time for this kind of experiment. That's how I felt about Don Staley. That's how I feel about the other young lady's name that is the G League coach of the Sacramento Kings. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her name. But I just don't have time. Now, Don Staley, actually, I felt like with her, she didn't have time. Why leave a place where you're exonerated from any bad mouthing to a place where after a year you could be fired because you experiment going wrong. I wouldn't do that unless the money's just out of this world. But I'm pretty she gets a lot of deals. Trust me, she gets a lot of deals. Anyway, yeah, I mean, with JJ Redick, like I said, I think he'll be a good coach. I really do. I think he would be a good coach at some point. I just do not have the time. The Hornets aren't in a position to help him look better because even if he knows all the X's and O's, we have a lot to do with getting the Hornets kind of where we need to be because I think we have the talent. One thing people are forgetting about is that we just don't have the continuity yet. Injury has been a part of it. Personalities have been a part of it. These guys, I think they know each other and they vibe with each other off the court. It's just on the court. I'm not saying they have issues or anything like that. I'm just saying that due to injuries and just due to just the influx of just changes that's constantly going on with this organization, it's just really hard to build any continuity between the guys. So I feel as though they have to work on that as well. That's not something easy for a first-time coaching period. Like, this is the first time he'll be coaching at any level, to my knowledge. And, yeah, it just won't be easy. So I'm not dismissing JJ Redick as a coach. I'm dismissing kind of the situation. I just don't think we're in a position to really deal with that. Now, I know people are going to talk about Steve Kerr, but Steve Kerr inherited Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, along with some other guys as well. So that kind of helps out. But, yeah, I think JJ Redick, I do feel like he would be a great assistant coach. Bring him on as assistant coach. Now, that I'll advocate for. I will advocate for bringing in Charles Lee and having JJ Redick as our assistant coach. Like, I'm fully for it, 100% for it. Like, do that. That would put me through the moon. But as far as having our head coach in a situation like this, I don't really like it too much. Now, time to move on to Charles Lee and kind of why he hasn't been announced as coach yet. First, I think it's simply just because the Boston Celtics are about to be in a huge playoff run. So there's just really no reason to them to kind of deter the Celtics and just kind of have that in the news while they're trying to get what they're doing done. I don't really think it's a rule, but I think it's more of a respect thing. At the end of the day, whether your team's beef or not, you have to remain respected around the league, and I feel like that is just more so of a respect thing. I don't think there's necessarily a rule for it, and that's just simply why the Hornets haven't announced why Charles Lee is the coach, because he's definitely the front runner. And also, quickly going back to the JJ Redick thing, these reports get twisted and convoluted all the time. So, yes, I know all the reports say head coach, but it very well could be they brought him in and the media's thinking head coach, but in reality, it's just them asking him would he be willing to be a part of the team in some capacity, even if it's an advisor as Steve Clifford was for the Brooklyn Nets last year, or 2 years ago. I'm sorry. So yeah, I just going back to that JJ Redick thing, but for Charles Lee, I think he's going to be a good coach. From what I hear about him, all the players on the Boston Celtics like him. He's able to command a room. They all respect him. They all listen to him when he speaks. They value his basketball knowledge. And Joe Mazzulla also has a lot of great things to say about Charles Lee as well. So I really feel like that's something that we could take because the Celtics are in a good position where they're still a young team. Their best players are relatively young. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. That's kind of really it. But still, those guys are really good. And then you have the older guys like Kristaps, and you have Derek White, and you have Drew Holiday that kind of help kind of mesh that together. Charles Lee should be hopefully the Hornets put Charles Lee in a position similar to that because of the fact that we do have those young guys. And Grant Williams, as much as I love him as a leader, he's still young himself. So if we could find that good mixture of like Hornets are not in a position to have a Udonis Haslem, is kind of what I mean. We're not in a position to have some old guy sit on the bench and kind of be our players coach that way. I think our players coach still needs to be someone who plays. And that was kind of my thing with Gordon Hayward was I felt like he could have been that voice from Steve Clifford, down to the other guys. He just didn't play. And when he didn't play, he was disinterested from outside looking in. I think we are going to need someone who's older that is also competitive, someone that also is able to perform, and then still be able to be that bridge between Charles Lee. And I think that helps all parties. I think that helps the Charlotte Hornets, younger guys. That helps Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, LaMelo Ball, Mark Williams, and our new pick, whoever that may be. But it also helps Charles Lee because he doesn't have to rely. He doesn't have to. It's just hard to try to get everybody just on board at one time by yourself. You're just like a one-man army. Yes, you have assistant coaches, but it's just easier if you do have just other guys to back you. Now, like I said, Grant Williams is definitely going to be that, but it helps when you have someone even older that has seen even more. And if we don't have to get 3 or 4 older guys, I think just one more guy that actually plays good minutes. I prefer maybe someone that's a backup center. And maybe that does a little something different than someone like Mark Williams and Nick Richards. Because if we get another center, I need them to be a little more versatile than those 2 guys. Only because we double down with those 2 guys. They kind of essentially do the same thing. But yeah, that's essentially the reason why I feel like the Charlotte Hornets haven't announced that Charles Lee is the coach. Because I'm pretty sure he's the answer. I think it was the Miami Heat and with Chris Quinn. I think they would have announced it already because the Heat season and not even to be offensive to Heat fans. But the way they kind of been talking about us has been pretty offensive. So actually, to offend Heat fan, your season's over. And yeah, you can talk to me about being a Hornets fan, but that's not my life. I have a lot of other things going on. Being a Hornets fan is just one of them. That is not that important. So yeah, to be as offensive as possible, your season's over. So I don't feel like there's a need to necessarily wait and see what happens. Just go ahead and announce it. That's why I think it's Charles Lee. As far as any other coaching candidate, I really like Jordy Fernandez, I believe that was his name, because of the his ability he coaches the Canadian national team. I think that's huge because there's some stars over there. You have Shea, and I say Shea's the star, but you have who else? Dylan Brooks. You have other guys. I can't think of everybody that's on there, but you have a lot of guys that Andrew Wiggins. You have guys like that on the Canadian national team that are prevalent in the NBA, and I think that would have been really big for us. But he ends up going to the Nets, which good for him. Yeah, I mean, that's really it. There's really not much to talk about. Like I said, the key things I want to talk about was JJ Redick, why Charles Lee necessarily hasn't been hired, and then also just wanted to kind of briefly touch on what Charles Lee needs. Because the biggest thing about this coaching hire is that this team is far away. We're in the middle of a culture change. We're not in the middle of just coaching change or a player change. We're in the middle of a whole culture change, and to establish that, one guy can't be responsible for it. So it shouldn't all fall on Grant Williams. It shouldn't all fall on Charles Lee. It shouldn't all fall on Jeff Peterson. It shouldn't all fall on the owners. It takes a collective group. So providing Charles Lee with the correct players and being good bosses essentially to Charles Lee, all that plays a part into what we get on the court. It really does. And it's something that we haven't seen in a very, very long time, not without the yes man mentality at least. So I just want to see this team kind of just be collective, give Charles Lee what he needs to be able to do what he does for this team, and I think he's going to be the guy. He's seen it. He's seen a lot. He worked with the Bucks previously. I think during the championship run, he knows what it takes to have a winning team, and I feel like he's a little more defensive minded because on the Bucks and on the Celtics, those defenses have been really good. So I think you're able to match having a younger coach that's more in tune with the current state of the NBA. But him still being defensive and being able to relate to the guys, I think that's just all going to – I dropped my mic. But I think that's all going to run together and just be great for the Charlotte Hornets. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I'm not saying the coaching search is completely over. There still could be people out there. I know people are talking about Bud, but Bud's apparently asking for like a lot of money to where even top-ranked teams are not willing really to pay right now, especially for someone who's kind of been out of the game for a little bit. I think a year, maybe 2. I don't know. Either – it's a year, it's been a year. But either way, I just feel as though Charles Lee is probably the best bet, and there's a reason we haven't heard about the Charlotte Hornets hiring a new coach. And yes, I know all the outlets are going to say JJ Redick hired for head coach, but I think they brought him in for something else. I don't think they brought in JJ Redick to be a head coach. I think the timing of the interviews what has the media to believe is a head coaching gig, but I think it's for something else. But I could be wrong. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.